But coming on to our third and final interview for today, or technically our fourth interview if you want to be pedantic, we come on to James Smaggasgale, the Aztec racing driver, part of the pair of Matthew Jolly and himself, who ended up taking the win in the LMP2 class. And what a drive from the pair of them today. And there's a story to it, which we're going to tell you everything about now as James gets ready to join me in the interview room. And in fact, he does join me now in the interview room. Good evening to you, James, and well, what a race to victory for yourself and teammate Matthew Jolly and Aztec Racing as a whole. Back and forth all the way through between yourselves and the Crest Autosport pair of Ben Bennyworth and also what was Nigel Stock. But in the end, you were able to find a way through, but it was close, and strategy seems to be the most important part of all of it.
Yeah, fantastic race from them and from us. Matt did a brilliant job. He's good. He's quick in these cars. That's why he's my teammate. That's why we put him in at the start. Yeah, I mean, we led from start to finish, but they kept it close, kept us on our toes throughout the whole thing. We felt we couldn't get a mistake. We were watching the penalties, the our incident points, because we really did not want to go over that. I don't know what we were on at the end, but I think we were about a 4x off of it. So yeah, high risk there, but right to the end, right to the limit. But yeah, fantastic race, and yeah.
And just on that, with regards to the team composition, indeed choosing drivers, we did see Matthew take to the car for the purposes of qualifying, and it did seem as though, in general, he was the faster of the two of you. But that's not to belittle you. If anything, I'd say you were perhaps the more consistent of the two of you from what we saw. But qualifying went quite well, put the car on pole, and had quite an advantage in qualifying of what was 2 seconds practically. The advantage itself was quite amazing, but did it shock you guys going into the race that advantage, it depended on who was in the car?
Well, yeah, you didn't expect a gap as big as it was. Whether they couldn't get a lap in with the traffic, obviously it wasn't easy with all the LMP3s and the LMDHs out on track at the same time. Learned that all too well in the touring cars this year, how difficult it might be in qualifying. But I knew Matt had it in him. He could probably have gone slightly faster anyway, but it didn't matter. It's fine. Pole is pole. But yeah, I had trust in him. I had faith in him. He's slightly quicker than me, yeah, for sure, like you said. So yeah, he definitely was going to have that. Obviously, during our practice building up to it, we look at the lap times, so we decide who's minorly faster anyway. But yeah, he had the priority in terms of starting and in terms of the stint.
Well, still, he may have had the priority, and we saw him deliver a very good opening stint and maintaining the lead. But then you took over the car, new tyres and a full tank of fuel, and pushed on. And to be fair, it looked as though your stints, you never put a foot wrong.
Yeah, I don't think I did, to be honest. I mean, the first stint was a full stint. Obviously, the last stint was barely a stint, to be honest. But yeah, the first stint was all right. Don't think I made a major mistake. The tyres really fell off. I think one of the areas that we've noticed that I was really struggling on was oversteering. I think I was oversteering a lot in terms of just over rotating the steering wheel. We came into the pits, and I think my front left was completely gone. I think it said 17% left on the middle of the front left. So very used. So yeah, I mean, a couple of things to work on for the next round, that's for sure.
Indeed, but where practice goes in, it will eventually make perfection. And with regards towards the end of the race, we did see the battle rage on, albeit there was a point where Crest Autosport needed to pit for an extra pit stop in order to, I believe, take some fuel to get to the end, although we're not quite sure. In fact, it may have been a penalty for speeding on pit entry, as we've seen in the YouTube chat from Nigel Stock himself. But either way, you guys were kept on your toes, and did things calm down in the garage after you'd seen that they'd had to make that extra pit stop?
Yeah, so we knew they were going to make the stop. We didn't think it'd be as early because we also needed to make a scheduled stop, because I think we were a few laps. I think we were about 5 to 10 laps short. I can't tell you I couldn't remember what the laps was, but we were coming in anyway. We were just going to do pretty much the full stint. But yeah, they did speed in the pits. We look back, it was, I think he said 100. He was doing about 100 kilometers an hour at the line, which is unfortunate for them because I think it would have been nice and close because we got hit on my pit entrance before the stint, so we knew it was going to be an interesting one. But yeah, it is what it is. That's racing, I guess. The mistakes happen. He went too fast. That's they'll learn from that and they'll be more cautious. I've sped way too many times myself in races, so into the pits. So yeah, they'll learn from that, and I'm sure they probably won't do it again now. That's for sure.
Indeed. And just on with regards to hits and bits of contact with other classes, we heard from our GT3 drivers only months ago that they found it relatively easy to negotiate LMP2 and LMP8 traffic, less so LMP3s due to the pace difference. From the perspective of LMP2 drivers, how did you guys find negotiating the traffic with the faster LMP8s and then the LMP3s and GT3s that are very similar on pace over most of the lap?
Yeah, to be fair, it was all right. I mean, the P3s are as long as they're nice and predictable, then it's fine, I guess. We didn't get overtaken too often by the faster class, so you barely noticed it, to be honest. And they usually blast past on the straight anyway because they're nice and smart. Well, you at least hope so. Yeah, the LMP3s are alright. You sort of just sit behind them and again blast past them on the straights, but sometimes they're nice and they leave the door open a little bit, and because you can brake slightly later than them. And you have slightly more arrows, so you can carry more speed. As far as the GT3s are concerned, it's all on me. It's all on the driver in the faster class. Like I said, as long as they're predictable, then it's completely on you, and you just have to be smart about it, whether you want to sit behind them for a bit. I don't notice Matt was a little bit more cautious with the GTs than I was. I don't know whether that's just my experience in a prototype on other sims, just being more, I don't know, more aggressive with lapping people or whatever. But yeah, you would sit behind them through corners and then wait for exits to blast past. But sometimes there were opportunities where you could just slot up the inside, and as long as they see you coming and don't turn in on you, you should be fine. But yeah, like I said, it's all being predictable and being smart as the faster car.
Well, that makes sense. I think many tuning in right now may take some good words of advice there if they're looking to make their debut in multi-class racing at some point in the future. But going back to yourself, given the car to take it to the checkered flag starts waving at you across the line, and it must have been a huge feeling of relief and joy. It's taking the maiden win for the season for the team.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. My first win at NXTGEN, so yeah, brilliant. Yeah, we just drove a flawless race, really. Yeah, lovely feeling crossing the line, especially after a fairly troubled touring car season. It was nice to get a good result for the team here. Obviously, the other Matt in the touring cars really carried us a little bit, but we don't talk about that. But, yeah, it was nice. It's nice to be on the top step. I haven't been on the top step for a while personally. The team has, but not personally. But yeah, Matt did a brilliant job, so here we are.
Well, a win for the season opener. In 2 weeks' time, we head to Belgium for the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. How are you feeling about potentially making it 2 wins in a row?
Oh, I'd love 2 wins in a row. That'd be brilliant. No, Spa is such a good track. Obviously, respect to the unfortunate incident that happened recently there. Luckily, we're on the sim, so there's no risk of that, but still respect for that. Yeah, done a fair few laps at Spa, as I reckon majority of people racing would have done, as it's one of the major tracks. But yeah, lovely track to drive in this car. Matt has done a 12-hour race recently, which they won as well, so he should be, hopefully he's still really quick through there. But yeah, lovely track. Look forward to it. Can't wait.
That's absolutely great to hear, James. And just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, first of all, Matt. It's got to have a massive shout out to Matthew Jolly. Absolute legend for that. Absolute good pace tonight. But yeah, all the sponsors for us at Aztec, obviously all the guys at Aztec anyway, massive thank you to them. But yeah, sponsors Woodland, Demon Tweaks, Claremont, RSR, Sport Classic. Yeah, a proper mega thank you to all of them, and thank you to you, Paul, because your commentary is always magnificent. And Gaza, and is it who else runs it? Mark? Or just anyone in anyone running this, anyone running Next Gen. Massive thank you.
Well, James, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations to yourself and teammate Matthew Jolly for what has been a brilliant drive to victory in the LMP2 class today. We look forward to seeing if you guys can make it 2 out of 2 in 2 weeks' time in Belgium. But until then, have a wonderful evening.
Cheers, Paul. Thank you very much.
All the best. So here and there from James Smaggasgale, one of the 2 drivers for Aztec Racing in this series in the number 21 LMP2 Dallara P21 Serum Machine. And a really profound approach there with regards to his thoughts with regards to the racing today. Talking about firstly, that aspect of the driver pairing and essentially how they've weighed up who's the fast driver to go into the car for qualifying and to start the race. But also, to be fair, James needing to give himself some credit where it's due in the fact he may not have been as fast compared to his teammate Matthew, but he still had the consistency and, like he said, not a single mistake. We didn't see a single mistake out there and really managing the pace. And in the end, cornering Crest Autosport and strategy, where Crest Autosport had to go for their pit stop, but also their mistake in the pit speed and the pits cost them the opportunity to be in the fight. But Aztec Racing, keeping it calm, keeping it collected, and not making those mistakes, which are the difference between you taking the checker flag or finishing second behind, and therefore they're going to be the ones to beat in 2 weeks' time in Belgium. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. And we've heard from technically 4 interviewees. We started off with Marcello Felix, albeit we heard from him in combination, and it's not listed there, unfortunately.